Liberi moves on in the techniques and delivers and shows a number of plays using the longsword in two hands. We'll start with the Zogho Largo, or the wide play. Now this scenario is really set up based on my attacker throwing a cut. Check your distance. She throws her cut. I'm going to make my defense by crossing, but I'm not taking a step. This is time of the hand. I think this is important. It's faster for me to make a cover without a step. And our feet end up in a specific orientation. We end up ideally at a specific range, which makes these techniques effective. Going slowly, we're not wearing face protection. The first play, very similar to in concept to the first play of the sword in one hand. It's the ideal scenario. Everything else is a failure drill for not being able to accomplish this objective. Leanna comes in with her attack, and I simply want to cover, and in the same measure of time, come down and cut her in the face, or maybe the arms. Doing this extremely safely, and making the cover very wide. So, boom. You can come in with her. Okay, fair enough. Boom. We end up here. Ideal objective to the wide plays. Make your cover, cut them in one action. It allows her no real ability to counter. But world isn't perfect. So I try this, and we come to a crossing. I fail to deflect into her head. We come to a crossing. The next play, we simply slide down onto the hands. So we'll do it again. The crossing. Come down to the hands, and then step through with the thrust. Next, we come to a crossing. Another option is to force my way in, bring her up with the kick. It's one of my least favorable options. Next, we have what I would prefer to see happen. We come to our crossing. I'm going to grab the sword, come in with the kick to the leg. These are shown in two different plates. One, grab the sword, press through with your attack. Next one, do the same thing, but then just break the leg at the same time. I prefer this because anytime you can check their weapon and have an idea of where it is, what it's doing, and most importantly, know that you're safe, that's a good thing. Next scenario he shows is the villain strike. Leanna comes in with her strong, very powerful, committed fendente. You can do this from various posta. What I need to do is step off the line, and then come up, deflect, and cut. The villain strike. This works against an untrained person who is throwing an attack that's 100% committed and very powerful. That's when you would employ this.
Question. When you're teaching this to students and you're struggling to try to get forward, timing and all that,
yep,
how would you explain the sequence of events, the elements that make it work?
Make it work? When I'm explaining to a new student, the first thing I like to do, if and especially if they're not understanding it, is I like to break it down into a scenario where you're dealing with only the footwork first. If you're aggressive, if your timing's just right, you can evade the attack with footwork alone. Leanna throws the cut, I can deal with my footwork. Failure to do the proper footwork to initiate is not going to put you in just the perfect position. And a lot of times that's where this thing will break down, is in the footwork. I also tend to start and train it from middle iron gate. It is a little easier to employ it from the low position. So again, start breaking down, make sure their footwork's good, make sure that they understand, come in with the attack, that we're coming. And then the other footwork that's somewhat difficult is that ability to follow up with that other step. The technique works without it, but you're not best range. Your strike, your cut is not going to have the power that it could. So break it down into different components, and that technique certainly is simple as it seems at speed, yeah, it's actually pretty complex. So break it down. He also shows a principle, which was more than anything else, a scenario, what I call it the high-low principle. But basically he shows the attacker throwing a low cut to the legs, or even a low cut to the body. All you simply need to do is step back, you throw the attack, and ideally I have her head. That's just basic geometry, but he shows it, and it's a neat principle. And I think you see this later in another technique. Hopefully I'll remember and I can point it out. But the idea of if somebody goes low, and this applies to throws and grappling, anytime someone goes low, goes to scoop your leg, their head is coming right at you, and it's a big, huge target. Whether you're going to smash it, bash it, grab it, whatever. And it's the same idea here. She comes out my leg, her head's all mine. Next technique in the wide plays are the exchange of points. Leanna comes in with the thrust, something I very much need to deal with. I can move off the line, and we're here. And then I come in with my one more step, and I have a thrust. If, and like everything else as I look at it, thrust A, maybe she's armored, ineffective, maybe I miss, who knows, but thrust has not worked. I'm going to come through, check that weapon, I have to deal with it at this point, and now I can force through and do whatever I got to do. Then we have the break of point, which you can do in a number of different ways. I've seen it done different ways over the years. The way Liberi describes it would suggest that you are in posta di donna or a high guard, and you're cutting, you're countering with a cut blow. So Leanna will come in with that cut, and I simply want to engage it and send it to the ground if I can. Likewise, I can do this from an iron gate position. She comes in, and I can force it to the ground as well, which is similar to what technique you've seen already in the one hand. But I like to practice it more and more from here, because I think this is a very typical scenario. You're in a high position ready to cut, and the opponent decides to throw a thrust. You better know how to get it out of the way. She comes in, simply bring it down. Now, the next thing I want to do is step on that sword. If I'm very lucky, I step on the sword, knock it out of her hands, break it, check it. I can cut and hit her, and then hit her 1, 2. That's my first objective. I make my cover. Maybe I don't step on the sword. I'm going to come up with a cut anyways. Leanna's going to decide to follow me up as some type of a counter to this cut, which can work. I want to bring in, hook her, and here we are. Alternatively, we get into this scenario. Another option, I come in, don't quite have the step on the sword, push the elbow. Lastly, a technique, a little different in the context of how it's set up. The punta falsa, the false point technique. This is something where I'm engaging, I'm initiating this engagement with a strong mezzana cut. That Leanna needs to deal with this, is the idea. So this is really a feint. I come in, come around, and we've got it. I've done this successfully. It doesn't work. One more time. Come in, just touch your sword and come around onto the other side, force through. This does have a counter. Leanna comes in with that technique. I make it, and I can move around. I'll do that on the other side so you can see. This is a cool drill about stepping off the line. Whether I bring up my sword as shown, or I have it up, or I'm going to cut her, or I'm going to pummel her, if I don't pivot around and get away from that point, the rest doesn't mean much. So it's a very good lesson for stepping off the line and footwork. Those are the wide plays of the longsword.
One quick question.
Yep.
So you always shows this all from the right side, and you show it from the right side. Could this also be done from the left side? So the basic cover, the exchange of points, the breaking of points, could that be done from on the left side?
Some of these techniques, I haven't experimented much with this, but some of them could be applied from the left side. Off the top of my head, I can't say which one would work or wouldn't work. If you were someone I know, like maybe decides to go left-handed, that opens up options for you. That's not something Liberi advocates. In the Zogho Stretto, the close plays, he shows plays from the left. And they are very much mirror the techniques you do from the right. So I think right there, and we're going to get to that, is the solution. You know, he does show it, he only touches on it. It's interesting that, yeah, he doesn't really have an entire set of plays from the left, but again, it's all about learning this in an efficient manner. And yeah, these can be done from the left. Long answer.